Have you ever felt so exhausted you thought you were about to collapse? I did. But I was wrong. I was not collapsing. I was being pushed. They say when you faint, everything goes black. For me, that is when everything became terrifyingly clear, and the man I trusted to catch me was the one holding me down. Listen closely. This story is not about how I fell. It is about who I decided to drag down with me when I got back up. My name is Eliza Vance. I am 38 years old, and I am a senior architect at Vector Design Studios. We are not just a top firm in Seattle. We are the firm, the one that gets the calls for the impossible projects. And I, Eliza Vance, am the one who makes the impossible possible. Right now, that impossible project is the Nexus Tower, a multi-billion-dollar bid that will not just reshape the Seattle skyline but define it for the next century. I am the lead, and the pressure is not just immense, it is atmospheric. It is a physical weight pressing down on my chest, day and night, for weeks. I have been living in a haze. It started subtly. A wave of dizziness when I stood up too fast. A sudden inability to recall a specific structural coefficient I had known by heart. A thick, persistent brain fog that made complex calculations feel like wading through wet cement. I blamed the stress. Mark, my husband, agreed. He is a freelance financial consultant, always so steady, so practical. He has been my anchor through this entire ordeal. Every single morning, without fail, he hands me my vitamins and a cup of steaming herbal tea. To help you stay strong. Love, he'd say, kissing my forehead. To help you keep going. I drank the tea. I took the vitamins. I needed to keep going. The bid was everything. Today is the final internal review before we submit the bid to the client. We are on the 28th floor. The executive conference room is a glass box suspended in the sky, with a view of the sound that usually calms me. Today, it just makes me feel untethered. The air is too thin. The lights are too bright. My suit, usually a source of confidence, feels abrasive and tight across my shoulders. I am standing at the head of the table. Julian Croft, my boss, sits directly opposite me. Julian is 45, impeccably dressed, and famously, terrifyingly exacting. He does not tolerate weakness. He rewards results. I am speaking. I can hear my own voice, but it sounds distant, disconnected from my body. The asymmetrical load distribution is handled by the exoskeleton, I say, pointing to the rendering. This allows us to maximize the floor plate efficiency by... I stop. The numbers on the technical drawings in front of me suddenly ripple. The sharp, precise black lines blur into a soft, meaningless gray. By what percentage? Vance. Julian's voice is sharp. It cuts through the fog. I blink, trying to clear my vision. The faces around the table, the junior architects, the finance guys, Julian. They all seem to waver, their edges softening. By 17%, I managed to say. Is that right? It sounds wrong. A strange, pulsing heat starts at the base of my skull and radiates outward. I feel a drop of sweat trace a cold line down my spine. Eliza, are you all right? Julian's voice is closer now. His tone has changed. The impatience is gone, replaced by something else. Concern. I try to smile. Yes, Julian, fine. I think I just skipped breakfast. It is a lie, but it is the only explanation I have. I skipped breakfast, and the vitamins Mark gave me this morning are churning on an empty stomach. That must be it. My heart gives a sudden, violent lurch in my chest. Not a skip, but a heavy, sickening thud. It echoes in my ears, drowning out the ambient hum of the projectors. The room tilts. I just need a moment, I whisper. I reach out to steady myself, aiming for the solid, reassuring edge of the marble conference table. My hand moves, but I cannot feel the connection. My fingers graze the cold stone, but there is no grip. They feel like useless weights at the end of my arm. My vision snaps. The panoramic view of Seattle, the anxious faces of my team, the billion-dollar project, it all vanishes. It collapses inward, shrinking rapidly into a single, blinding pinpoint of white light. A tunnel. I am falling. I feel the air displace around me, a silent rush. The last sound I register before the blackness takes me completely is a collective, sharp gasp from everyone in the room. And then, loud and urgent, cutting through the void, Julian Croft shouting my name. The first thing I register is the smell. Antiseptic. It is a sharp, sterile smell that cuts through the fog. The second is the sound, a steady, rhythmic beep next to my ear. I open my eyes. The light is wrong. It is not the soft, gray light of Seattle filtered through the glass walls of the 28th floor. It is a harsh, buzzing fluorescent light directly above me. I am in a small, curtained bay. There is an IV needle taped to the back of my hand. Eliza, I turn my head, a movement that feels slow and heavy. Julian Croft is standing by the curtain. He looks impossibly out of place in his tailored vest and expensive suit, his posture rigid. He looks awkward, embarrassed. Julian, what happened? My voice is a dry rasp. You collapsed, he says. His voice is low, clipped. During the presentation, you fainted. I drove you here. Oh my God. The presentation. The bid. My stomach clenches with shame. Julian, I am so sorry. The project. Do not worry about the project, Vance. He cuts me off. His tone is not angry. It is something else. Something I cannot place. The team is handling the submission. Then, the panic hits. The real panic. Mark. Oh God. Mark. He must be frantic. I need to call him. Where is my purse? It is here. Julian retrieves my bag from a chair in the corner. He pulls out my phone and hands it to me. My hands are shaking, but I manage to press the power button. The screen lights up. My heart does not stop. It just freezes, turning into a solid, cold lump of ice in my chest. 14 missed calls. 5 new text messages. Every single one of them is from Julian. I scroll down, my thumb numb. Nothing. Not one call from Mark. Not one text. He did not call. The words are flat. Empty. Julian shifts, his gaze dropping to the floor before meeting mine. He looks intensely uncomfortable. I tried to call him, Eliza, from my phone, many times. It went straight to voicemail. I assumed his phone was off, or he was in a meeting. He takes a breath. I used your phone. You gave me the passcode last month to access the shared client drive. I was trying to find another emergency contact. Your parents? A sibling. I apologize for the intrusion. It is fine, I say, still staring at the blank space where Mark's name should be. Eliza. His voice is strained. When I unlocked your phone, a text message alert had just popped up on the lock screen. He holds out his hand. I give him the phone, confused. He navigates to the message app, his movements precise, angry. He does not read it. He just shows me the screen. A new message from a contact named Chloe. It is not addressed to me. Is she down yet? Is plan B necessary? Don't call me, Mark. I'm at the spa waiting for the good news. The words swim. They do not make sense. Is she down yet? Plan B? Good news. I do not understand. I whisper. This is a mistake. A wrong number. I thought so too, Julian says, his voice flat, cold. I thought it was some kind of sick, twisted joke. He looks at me, his face hard. I kept calling your husband's number. No answer. I called again, 5 minutes after that text arrived. He did not pick up, but I saw his call history. His call history. I ask, my voice small. How? It seems you and your husband share a cloud account, Julian says. Your call logs are synced. He received my call from the emergency room. He ignored it. 5 minutes later, he made an outgoing call. To her. To Chloe. He ignored me. He ignored an emergency call from my boss. He hung up to talk to her. The cold dread in my stomach turns into a sickening, sour bile rising in my throat. The curtain slides open. A man in blue scrubs, holding a tablet, steps inside. He glances at Julian, then at me. Ms. Vance, I am Dr. Ramirez. You had a severe syncopal episode. You lost consciousness completely. It was stress, I say, the words automatic. The lie Mark and I had agreed on. I skipped breakfast. The doctor shakes his head, looking at his tablet. I do not believe so. Your heart rate and blood pressure are dangerously low. Your vitals are not consistent with just stress or low blood sugar. We ran a full toxicology screen. He looks up, his eyes meeting mine. Ms. Vance, we found an unusually high dosage of a beta blocker in your system. Propranolol. Are you prescribed this medication for high blood pressure or anxiety? No, I say. My blood pressure is naturally low. Never. The doctor's expression darkens. In that case, you should know that this medication, if misused, especially in this dosage, would cause your exact symptoms: dizziness, brain fog, heart palpitations, and eventually, a critical drop in blood pressure leading to collapse. I look from the doctor's concerned, clinical face to Julian's cold, furious one. The vitamins Mark gave me this morning. The herbal tea every single day for weeks. To help you stay strong. Love. The room is no longer blurry. It is sharp, sterile, and perfectly, terrifyingly clear. The discharge papers were a formality. Dr. Ramirez had been discreet, listing the official diagnosis as severe exhaustion and stress-induced syncope. He had given me a look, a silent acknowledgement of the lie, as he handed me the file. The drive back from the hospital in Julian's black sedan was silent. The rain had started, soft and gray, smearing the city lights. We did not speak for several blocks. The only sound was the rhythmic click of the windshield wipers, counting down the seconds until I had to face him. Finally, as we turned onto my street, Julian spoke, his eyes fixed on the road. I am your boss, Vance. That is all I have been. He paused, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. But for right now, I am the only person you can trust. Do you understand that? I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. Good. So you are going to go upstairs, and you are going to be the exhausted, overworked architect. The doctors told you it was severe exhaustion. That is the story. We stick to it. You know nothing. You suspect nothing. Can you do that? Yes, I whispered, the single word feeling like sandpaper. Good. He pulled up to the curb of my luxury high-rise. We will talk tomorrow about company resources. For now, you are on medical leave. I stepped out of the car, the cold, damp air hitting my face. I walked into the lobby, the doorman greeting me with a concerned look, and rode the elevator up to the penthouse. The doors opened directly into our foyer. The apartment was silent, beautifully lit, and felt like a pristine marble tomb. He must have heard the elevator. Mark burst out of his study, his face a perfect mask of frantic, relieved panic. Eliza, oh my God, baby. He rushed to me, pulling me into a hug so tight it was suffocating. I forced my rigid body to relax, to melt into him, to play the part. I leaned my head against his chest, the chest of the man who had been poisoning me. Where were you? I was terrified, he said, pulling back to scan my face. His eyes were wide, his performance flawless. The hospital, I murmured, letting my voice sound weak and tired. I fainted. Mark, at the office, during the presentation. What? Oh, my poor girl, he said, stroking my hair. Why did you not call me? I would have been there in a second. I looked at him, feeling the cold, hard ice of my new reality. I tried. Julian tried. He said he called you. 14 times. The mask flickered. Just for a second. A flash of irritation in his eyes before the concern flooded back in. "My phone," he said, tapping his pocket with a self-deprecating laugh. "I am so sorry. Love, I was with this new client, a massive account. I must have put it on silent. I just saw the calls a few minutes ago. I was about to call the police." "It is okay," I whispered. "I am okay. Julian took me. The doctors. They said I am just completely burned out. Severe exhaustion." "I knew it," he said, guiding me to the plush velvet sofa. "I have been telling you." "You work too hard." He kissed my forehead. "My poor, brilliant wife. You scared me half to death." I watched him. I watched the way his brow furrowed with worry. I watched him check his phone. Just a quick glance. No, not his phone. His watch. He was checking the time. A sliver of annoyance. I was not supposed to be here. I was supposed to be where? In a hospital incoherent. My collapse in front of Julian had clearly interrupted his schedule. "You need to rest," he said, his voice all gentle concern again. "I will get your tea." The usual. He bustled off to our gleaming, state-of-the-art kitchen. I heard the click of the kettle, the opening of the cabinet where he kept the herbal blend. He was going to give it to me. Right now. After I had just collapsed. The audacity was breathtaking. He returned a few minutes later with a steaming mug and a small ceramic dish holding a single gel capsule. The vitamin. "Here you go, love," he said, placing it on the coaster. "This will help you sleep. You need deep rest. No more work." I looked at the mug. I looked at the pill. I looked at him. The man I had loved. The man I had trusted with my life. "Thank you, Mark," I said, managing a weak smile. "You always take such good care of me. I do not know what I would do without you." "Always," he said, kissing my hair. "I am going to finish up one email. Then I am all yours." He retreated to his office, closing the door softly behind him. I waited 1 full minute. Then, I stood up, picked up the mug of tea, walked to the large potted ficus in the corner, and poured the hot liquid directly into the soil. I picked up the capsule, my fingers closing around the small, toxic object. I walked into the bathroom, tucked it securely into the pocket of my bathrobe, and returned to the sofa, pulling a cashmere throw over my legs. I closed my eyes, regulating my breathing, feigning the first stage of sleep. Hours later, long after I should have been deeply asleep, I heard it. The house was dark, but a line of light glowed from under his office door. His voice was a low, angry whisper, barely audible, but in the silence of our home, it carried, "No, she is just exhausted." That is what the doctor said. A pause. He was listening. Yes, Julian Croft was the one who took her. He drove her home. Another, longer pause. The anger in his voice was unmistakable, a venomous hiss. "Yes, it slows things down. Chloe, I know it slows things down." My official medical leave began the next day. Mark was suffocatingly attentive. He fluffed pillows, kept the lights low, and brought me endless cups of healing herbal tea. I accepted every single one, thanking him with a weak smile before dumping them in the soil of our large corner ficus. I wondered how long it would take the tree to die. My new job was playing the part of the fragile, recovering wife, the doting, worried husband. It was a vile, silent performance. But while I was supposedly resting, I was working with a clarity I had not felt in months. The hot, chaotic panic I felt in the emergency room had cooled, hardening into something precise and methodical. My anger was now a tool. The first task was getting the evidence out of the apartment. I had the capsule from the night before, tucked safely in my bathrobe. That morning, I had palmed the new vitamin he handed me, pretending to take it while I swapped it for an actual B-complex from my gym bag. I poured a small amount of the tea he brewed into a travel-sized shampoo bottle, rinsing it thoroughly first. I waited until he left for a client meeting, which I now understood meant a meeting with Chloe. The moment the elevator doors chimed, I used a secure, encrypted app on my laptop to contact Julian. "I have them," I typed. "The capsules from last night and this morning, and the tea?" His reply was immediate. "Good. A resource will be in touch." "The name is Riley. Trust them completely. Vector has them on retainer for corporate security." An hour later, my personal phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Package pickup. Alley entrance behind your building. 10 minutes." I placed the capsule and the vial into a small, padded envelope, took the service elevator down to the alley, and saw a person in a generic courier uniform waiting by a bicycle. I handed over the envelope. No words were exchanged. Riley nodded once, secured the package, and was gone. It was cold, professional, and efficient. It felt like the first clean breath I had taken in a year. Julian called me on my secure line later that afternoon. "Vance," he said, his voice all business. "Human Resources has officially processed your medical leave. You are to take 6 weeks, fully paid. The board understands the extreme pressure you were under with the Nexus bid. You are ordered to rest." I waited. I knew there was more. His voice dropped, losing its corporate edge and becoming something harder. "That is the official story. Unofficially, you use that time. You get what you need. You destroy him, Vance." The next 48 hours were the longest of my life. I lived with the man who was systematically poisoning me. I smiled when he touched my arm. I thanked him for the toxic food he prepared. I pretended to sleep while I lay awake, listening to his every move. Riley called on the 3rd day. "Ms. Vance, are you in a secure location?" I locked myself in the master bathroom, turning on the shower to cover the sound. "I am. Go ahead. The report from the lab is conclusive." Riley's voice was calm, devoid of emotion. "The capsules are not vitamins. They contain pulverized propranolol. We are talking an extremely high dosage, several times the maximum recommended daily intake, delivered at once. They were crushed and manually repacked into the store-bought herbal capsules." I slid down the cold marble wall, my legs weak. "And the tea." "A prescription-grade mild sedative, not enough to knock you out cold, but more than enough to enhance the effects of the beta blocker. It would amplify the dizziness, the brain fog, and ensure a state of constant, pervasive exhaustion. It is a very sophisticated combination, chemically speaking." The pieces slammed into place, forming a picture that stole my breath. "He was not trying to kill me," I whispered, the words tasting like ash. "Not outright." "My thoughts exactly," Riley said. "This is an incapacitation plan. This combination is designed to make you appear mentally and physically unstable, confused, dizzy, paranoid, irrational. It is designed to make you unable to make sound, logical decisions. He wants to discredit you." My mind flashed to the presentation, my collapse. It was all a performance, orchestrated by him, to prove I was unfit. "The woman," I said, my voice hardening. "Chloe." "Already on it." I ran the name from the text message. "She is not a ghost. Her name is Chloe Brandt. His mistress. More. She is an attorney, Ms. Vance." The blood in my veins turned to ice. "What kind of attorney?" "Estates and trusts, wills, living directives." Riley paused, and I knew the final piece was coming. "And powers of attorney." I hung up. I stood, my reflection in the mirror looking back at me pale, hunted, but no longer confused. I walked out of the bathroom, past Mark, who was reading on the sofa, and into my home office. I went to the large steel filing cabinet where we kept our personal documents. I pulled open the bottom drawer, labeled Personal and Financial, and there it was, in a neat maroon binder labeled Our Future. A durable power of attorney, signed 5 years ago when we first merged our finances and bought the penthouse, a time when I was happy and blindly in love. It gave Mark complete, undisputed control over my entire financial portfolio and all my medical decisions, effective the moment I was deemed mentally or physically incapable of making them myself. He wanted the world to see me as I saw myself that day on the 28th floor, unstable, unreliable, and incompetent. He wanted to take everything. The power of attorney was the weapon. Riley's next report showed me the target. Riley worked fast. The next encrypted file arrived while Mark was in the shower, the sound of the water covering my gasp as I opened the document. The report was concise, clinical, devastating. Mark was not a freelance financial consultant. Not anymore. Subject Mark Vance. The report read, "Financial license revoked 3 years prior. Cause embezzlement. Subject was quietly sanctioned, banned from the industry for life, and settled out of court to avoid criminal charges." 3 years. He had been lying to me for 3 years. It got worse. Current financial status. Critical. Subject has outstanding personal debts estimated at over $700,000, linked to a series of failed high-risk commodity ventures. He was not just lying, he was drowning. My hands were shaking as I navigated to our joint bank accounts, the accounts I had trusted him to manage while I focused on my career, the accounts I had barely looked at in months, beyond checking the top-line number. Everything looked normal on the surface, but that was the point. Mark was good at surfaces. I started pulling on the threads. I opened the file for our penthouse, the one I had paid for the down payment on, before we were married. The one I believed we were just a few years away from owning outright. There was a new line item, a second mortgage, a home equity line of credit, maxed out. He had taken out a loan against our home, without my knowledge. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I logged into my Vector employee portal, the place where my compensation, my bonuses, and my stock options lived. My last 2 quarterly stock disbursements, part of my senior partner package, had not been deposited into our joint investment account. They had been rerouted, diverted to a new holding account, an account number I did not recognize, an account I could not access. He was bleeding me dry, stealing from me while I worked 60-hour weeks to build a future I thought we were sharing. The nausea was overwhelming. I closed the laptop, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps. This was not just about debt. This was not just about stealing. The debt was the motive. The POA was the weapon. But what was the prize I already knew? I just had not let myself see the full, horrific picture. It was not the penthouse. It was not my salary. It was the Nexus Tower. At Vector, senior partners on projects of this scale are awarded a significant tranche of company stock. It is the golden handcuff, the big payout for the sleepless nights and the years of work. My package, tied to the successful completion of the Nexus Tower, was worth millions, and it was set to vest, in full, the moment the client signed off on the final plans. The plans I was supposed to be finalizing right now. The plan, his and Chloe's, snapped into focus with sickening clarity. It was not just about making me look unstable. It was about timing. They needed me to be declared incompetent. They needed me institutionalized, tucked away in a psychiatric hospital, confused and over-medicated before that project was finished, before those millions in stock landed in my name. With me declared mentally unfit, the durable power of attorney would activate. Mark, my loving, worried husband, would gain total control. He and his lawyer girlfriend would have my signature, my authority. They would seize the stock package the moment it vested, liquidate the entire portfolio, empty the accounts, and be on a plane to somewhere with no extradition treaty, all before I even understood what had happened. My collapse on the 28th floor, my fainting in front of my entire team, in front of Julian. It was not the success of their plan. It was its greatest failure. I realized, with a jolt that left me breathless, that they never wanted this to happen at the office. They wanted me to break down at home, alone, where Mark could be the one to find me, where he could call 911, where he could be the frantic, devoted husband weeping as he told the paramedics his brilliant, fragile wife had finally, tragically, snapped. He would have been the one to authorize the drugs. He would have been the one to commit me. He would have had total control of the narrative. But I had not broken down at home. I had kept going. I had kept pushing through the fog, through the dizziness, fueled by coffee and ambition. I had lasted longer than they ever thought I could. They had underestimated my endurance. And they had, fatally, underestimated Julian Croft. I told Mark I had a follow-up appointment with a specialist. It was an easy lie. He was all for it, encouraging me to get all the rest and help I needed. The specialist, of course, was Vector Design's chief legal counsel. The meeting was not held at Vector. Julian arranged it at the law firm's downtown office, a discreet, obscenely expensive space with wood-paneled walls and a hushed atmosphere that screamed privilege and ironclad protection. Julian was already there, seated at the head of a long mahogany table with two other people, a sharp, older woman named Evelyn Hayes, Vector's counsel, and Riley, who looked just as unassuming in person, their face impossible to read. "Vance," Julian said, nodding as I entered. "Thank you for coming." "Please, lay it out." I did not present as a victim. I presented as an architect. I laid out my findings like blueprints. I started with the toxicology report, sliding the folder across the polished wood. I followed with the printouts of Mark's revoked license and his $700,000 debt. Then, the home equity line of credit and the rerouted stock disbursements. I placed the copy of the power of attorney in the center of the table. Finally, I laid out the details of the Vector Nexus stock package, with the vesting date circled in red. When I finished, there was a heavy silence. Evelyn Hayes, the lawyer, looked at Julian, not at me. "He's not just a grifter. He's an idiot." Julian's face was like carved stone. He stared at the POA, his jaw tight. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, but it was the most terrifying I had ever heard him. "He did not just attack you, Vance." He looked up, his eyes meeting mine, and they were blazing. "He attacked my company. That stock package is for talent retention. It is the reward for building the goddamn skyline. It is not a slush fund for some embezzler's Cayman Islands vacation." Evelyn tapped the power of attorney with a manicured finger. "This is the problem. A POA is a notoriously difficult instrument to invalidate. You signed it, Eliza. You were of sound mind. To revoke it now, especially with you on medical leave for exhaustion, will be difficult. Mark and this, Chloe, they will fight it. They will argue that you are the one who is unstable. They will use your collapse, your exhaustion, as their primary evidence that the POA should, in fact, be activated." "So he wins?" I asked, the cold returning to my stomach. "He wins if we play defense," Evelyn said, "but we are not going to. He is not a doctor. He cannot have you declared incompetent. He needs to build a case. Right now, all he has is an exhausted wife. To win, he needs to get greedy. We need overwhelming, undeniable proof of criminal intent. We need him and her to make the next move. We need to catch them in the act." Julian leaned forward, steepling his fingers. He looked at me, a flicker of something almost like a smile in his eyes. "He thinks you are a fragile artist. He thinks you are a weak, exhausted woman he can push over. He has forgotten who you are." He paused, then said, "You are an architect. Eliza, you build complex structures. You design systems. So, I want you to go home. And I want you to design a trap." I stared at him, understanding the shift in the room. This was not a rescue mission. This was a corporate takeover. "Good," I said. "Good," he replied. "Because Vector's legal team is now your legal team. Riley is at your disposal. This is no longer just your personal fight. This is a Vector compact." He stood up, looking out the window for a moment. down at the city I was supposed to be rebuilding. My younger sister, he said, his voice quiet, directed at the glass. Her husband did something similar, not as chemical, but financially. He bled her dry over 2 years, convinced her she was losing her mind while he drained her trust fund. By the time we found out, she had nothing. It ruined her, broke something we could not fix. He turned back to the room, his eyes hard. I will not let that happen to one of my people. Evelyn Hayes clapped her hands together, a sharp, decisive sound that made me jump. Excellent. Then we are all in agreement. We are not just invalidating a POA. We are building a multi-front case for criminal fraud, conspiracy, and attempted assault. We will dismantle Mr. Vance legally, financially, and professionally. Eliza, Julian, let us design this trap. The trap had to be perfect, and the bait had to be something a predator could not resist their own greed. Riley's next report was the masterpiece. Mark, it turned out, was not just a con man, but a cliché. While he was drugging me and planning to steal millions, he was also setting up his escape route. Riley had traced the complex financial outflows from the accounts Mark thought were invisible. They did not lead to a joint fund for him and Chloe. They led to a newly opened, deeply encrypted personal account in Switzerland, opened 6 months ago, in his name, and his name only. He was planning to cut her out of the final score. He was going to use her legal expertise to secure the power of attorney, liquidate my assets, and then vanish, leaving her behind with me to face the wreckage. It was, in its own way, beautiful. A betrayal built on a betrayal. Chloe's schedule, provided by Riley, was rigid. 9 a.m. every Friday. She had a latte at a small discreet cafe in Belltown, well away from her downtown office. I acquired a new, untraceable burner phone, courtesy of Vector Security. I turned on the audio recorder before I even left the car. I had skipped Mark's vitamin that morning, washing it down the sink instead. My mind felt clearer than it had in a long time. I dressed for the part a simple beige trench coat, no makeup, my hair pulled back. I let the genuine, bone-deep exhaustion settle into my features. I was not an architect. I was a broken-down wife. She was at a corner table, scrolling through her phone, the picture of smug, corporate perfection. I walked over and simply stood there, waiting. She looked up, annoyance flashing across her face, which quickly curdled into shock as she recognized me. Eliza. Her voice was cold, appraising. You should be at home. I know about you, I said. I did not need to fake the tremble in my voice. The adrenaline was doing that for me. I know about the affair. Mark told me he is going to leave me. A slow, reptilian smile spread across her face. This was her victory lap. She leaned back in her chair, enjoying the moment. Well, it is better that you know. He deserves to be happy. Eliza. He deserves someone who actually supports him, not someone who is married to their job. You are right, I said. She blinked, clearly not expecting that. I do not care about him, I whispered, leaning in, letting the fake desperation flow. You can have him. I am done. I just care about the money. The money. Her interest sharpened. She was a lawyer, after all. He is playing us, Chloe. He is playing both of us. I slid my personal phone across the table. The screen lit up with the Swiss bank account summary Riley had procured. He has been siphoning money from our joint accounts, but he is not putting it into any future he has with you. He is putting it here, a private account, his name only. I watched her face. The smugness did not just fade, it shattered. It was replaced by the cold, rapid calculation of someone realizing they are not the predator. They are the prey. She stared at the 7-figure balance, her knuckles whitening on her coffee cup. He opened this 6 months ago. I pressed on. He is planning to run. Chloe, not with you, from you. He is going to get that POA activated, drain my vector stock, and he is going to leave you holding the bag, trying to explain to the bar association why you helped him commit his wife. That bastard, she hissed. The hatred was raw, and it was entirely real. Exactly. So here is the deal. I leaned in further. I do not want him. I want my life back. You are his lawyer. You have access to everything. Help me freeze his assets before he vanishes and leaves us both with nothing. Help me invalidate that POA. Why would I help you? She spat, though her eyes were still glued to the bank statement. Because I am going to make you a better offer than he did. You help me, and I will not press charges. You help me, and I will let you have what is in that Swiss account. You are an estates lawyer. Call it a finder's fee. You take his share. I keep mine. All I want is my vector portfolio and this whole nightmare to be over. She stared at me, her mind working furiously. She had no loyalty. She only had greed. She saw the 7 figures on that screen as hers. He had stolen it from her. I need proof, Chloe, I said, playing my final card. I need to know what the whole plan was. I need to protect myself in court. Chloe smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. It was the smile of a shark that had just found a bigger meal. Oh, I have proof. Mark was sloppy, but I am not. We kept everything on a private, encrypted server. Every email, every draft of the POA strategy, the entire file we were building on your mental instability. It is all there. She pulled her own laptop from her bag and opened it. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. He gave me full administrative access in case anything happened to him. Stupid. My phone buzzed. A new email. You now have full access, she said, snapping the laptop shut. Everything you need to bury him. He will not know what hit him. Now, about that Swiss account. I stood up, my hands visibly shaking with what she thought was relief. Thank you. You will not regret this. Neither will you, she said, already dialing a number, her face a mask of cold fury. I walked out of the cafe and into the waiting sedan that Julian had arranged. I took the burner phone from my pocket and pressed stop on the recording. I had it all. Her admission, her confession to the conspiracy, and now, thanks to her own greed, a complete digital archive of their entire plot. I had no intention of sharing a single cent. She had just bought her own ticket to disbarment, and she had paid for it with Mark's stolen money. With the full weight of Chloe's betrayal now in my possession, the Vector legal team moved like sharks. Evelyn Hayes and her associates spent the next 24 hours building an ironclad case. They used the encrypted server data to file for an immediate emergency injunction to freeze every known asset tied to Mark. The Swiss account, the hidden holding accounts, the joint accounts, even the line of credit on the penthouse. Everything. They were setting the financial trap. I was in charge of the physical one. My performance as the broken, recovering wife entered its final act. I waited until Mark was in his office, no doubt reviewing the accounts he did not yet know were barren. I knocked softly on his door, my bathrobe clutched around me. Mark, I said, my voice intentionally small. He looked up, annoyed at the interruption, but his face softened into that fake, concerned mask. Hey, love, you should be in bed. I know. I have been doing so much thinking. Why, I walked in, perching on the edge of his desk. I feel so awful, Mark, about everything, about the presentation, about how I have been so distant, so focused on work. He put his hand over mine. Eliza, it is not your fault. You were just exhausted. I was, I said, but I do not want to be anymore. I want to fix this. I want us back. His eyes lit up, not with love, but with opportunity. I want that too, baby, more than anything. I was thinking, I said, we should, I don't know, have a proper evening, just us. I will make dinner, a real one, like we used to. We can just talk. I paused, as if just having the idea. You know, Julian has been calling. He feels terrible about my collapse. He wants to come by. Just briefly, to discuss my return to work. This was the first part of the bait. Mark's eyes narrowed. Julian coming here. Just for a drink to prove I am okay, I said, looking down. He is so worried. I thought if he saw me, here, healthy, he would stop fussing. He wants to talk about a timeline for me coming back. Mark's mind was racing. I could see it. If Julian, the famously tough boss, believed I was fine and ready to return, it would throw a wrench into his unstable wife narrative. It would force his hand. He would have to accelerate his plan B. He would need a new, more accidental way to incapacitate me. And soon. That is a great idea, Eliza, he said, forcing a smile. Tonight I feel good today. Tonight it is, he said. I will be here. Then, I laid the final irresistible lure. And Mark, one more thing. This whole episode, it scared me. It made me realize I cannot handle everything. You have always been so good with the finances, and I have just dumped it all on you. I was looking at the paperwork, and it is all so complicated. I let a tear well in my eye. While I am recovering, I want to sign some new papers, just to simplify everything. To give you full, proper control so I do not have to think about it. You can just handle it. All of it. Is that okay? His face was a masterpiece of feigned humility and love. He pulled me into a hug. Of course, baby. Whatever you need. Whatever makes you feel secure. He thought I was broken. He thought I was a fool, so beaten down by his drugs that I was now willingly handing him the keys to the entire kingdom. He believed I had completely and totally fallen for it. That evening, I set the stage. Our penthouse, my prison, was about to become my theater. I set the dining table with our best china. I chilled a bottle of expensive champagne. My most important preparation was in our bedroom. I took a small black device, a high-resolution streaming camera, supplied by Riley, and tucked it onto the bookshelf, its tiny lens perfectly aimed at my bedside table. I was in the kitchen, plating the appetizers, when Mark came into the bedroom. He was in his Julian Croft suit, looking charming and professional. He had the small ceramic dish in his hand. "Time for your vitamin love," he said, his voice smooth. "Especially if you are going to be entertaining." He handed me the capsule and a glass of water. I looked at it. The last one. I turned toward the bed, my back to him, as if to sit down. "Do not forget," he said. "You need your strength." "I know. Thank you," I replied. In full view of the hidden camera, I palmed the capsule. I brought the empty glass of water to my lips and made a show of swallowing. Then, I sat on the bed, my hand dropping to my side. I slipped the capsule into a small, pre-labeled plastic evidence bag I had hidden in my bathrobe pocket. I sealed it. I held it up to the lens for 3 full seconds, the date and time written clearly on the label. Final proof. Acquired, recorded, and sealed. I went back to the kitchen, my heart a cold, steady drum. My phone buzzed, a text from a secure number. "Riley. Assets frozen. Court order is active. We are in position in the lobby. Your call, Ms. Vance." I set out the champagne flutes. The trap was set. The bait was taken. All I had to do was wait for the guests to arrive. Mark was dressed in his favorite suit, the dark charcoal one he said made him look trustworthy and expensive. He had been preening for the last 20 minutes, adjusting his cuffs, practicing his confident, man-to-man smile in the hall mirror. He was ready to charm Julian Croft, to put on the show of the concerned husband who was relieved his brilliant wife was finally on the mend. I played my own part. I wore a simple silk dress, my hair pinned up. I looked, I thought, appropriately frail but elegant, the very picture of a woman recovering from a serious exhaustion episode. I moved slowly, as if still weak, as I brought the appetizers to the table. "You should be sitting, love," Mark said, rushing to pull my chair out. I can handle this. I am fine, I said, with a grateful, weak smile. I want to. It feels good to feel normal again. We sat at the gleaming dining table. The penthouse was quiet, the city lights of Seattle sparkling like a diamond net far below us. The stage was set. Mark opened the champagne with a practiced pop. He poured 2 glasses, his movements expansive, confident. To your recovery, Eliza, and to simplifying things. He raised his glass. I raised mine, my hand steady. I clinked his glass. To simplifying things. I echoed. I took a small sip. He, however, drank half his glass in one gulp. He was nervous. He was excited. He was a predator who thought his prey had just walked into the snare and offered up its throat. He checked his expensive watch, the one I had bought him for our 3rd anniversary. Julian's running late, I guess, he asked, trying to sound casual. I took another slow sip of my champagne, savoring the bubbles, the moment. I placed the glass down, my hand perfectly steady. Oh, he is not coming. Mark. He frowned, the practiced smile faltering. What, he is not coming? But you said he wanted to discuss your return. I know what I said, I said. He is not coming, but he did send his condolences. His confusion was genuine now, laced with a new, sharp irritation. This was not part of the plan. Condolences. He gave a short, nervous laugh. What a strange thing to say. Condolences for what? I looked at him, really looked at him, and let the mask of the weak, fragile wife dissolve. I let him see the architect, the woman who built things, the woman who saw every angle, every load-bearing point, and every weakness. For your career, I said. My voice was not small. It was not weak. It was as cold and hard as the marble floor on the 28th floor. As the words hung in the air between us, his phone, which he had placed face up on the table next to his plate, buzzed. A harsh, vibrating sound in the silence. He glanced down. It was a bank alert. He stared at it. It buzzed again. A second alert. From a different bank. And a third. A credit line. His face went pale. He snatched the phone, his thumb fumbling to unlock it. He scrolled, his breathing becoming shallow and fast. I saw the words, even from across the table. Account frozen. Account frozen. Insufficient funds. Asset injunction. He looked up from the screen, his eyes wide, the blood drained from his face. The charming, concerned husband was gone. In his place was a cornered animal. The mask did not just slip. It shattered, revealing the ugly, desperate thing underneath. "What did you do?" he hissed, his voice a venomous whisper. "Eliza, what did you do?" Before I could answer, the chime of our private elevator echoed through the apartment. A flash of relief crossed his face. "That must be him," he said, pushing his chair back. "Julian, whatever stupid game you are playing. Eliza, The elevator doors slid open, but it was not Julian Croft, tall and imposing in a suit. It was Chloe Brandt. She was not in a suit. She was in a rage, her face pale, her eyes burning. She clutched her phone in her hand like a weapon. Mark froze. He stared at her, completely dumbfounded. "Chloe, what in the hell are you doing here?" I picked up my champagne glass again. I invited her, darling. Mark's head snapped back to me, his expression a frantic, confused mask of betrayal. "You," I said, "did not really think she was on your side, did you?" "She was a little upset when she found out about that Swiss account. The one you opened just for you?" Chloe took a step into the room, her eyes locked on Mark. "You thought you could just cut me out," she screamed. I sipped my drink, watching the scene I had so meticulously designed. "She is here for her money. Mark. Or, I suppose, what she thought was her money. It is all gone. By the way, All of it. Mark's head swiveled. A trapped rat looking from the new threat. Chloe, back to the real threat. Me. The realization dawned in his eyes. The slow, agonizing calculation that every escape route had been sealed. He was not just caught. He was showcased. Chloe, for her part, had no interest in me. Her entire venomous focus was on him. The Swiss account, Mark, she shrieked, her voice echoing in the pristine silence of the penthouse. You utter bastard, you were going to leave me with nothing. The accusation, the reality of his total betrayal, finally broke him. The desperation turned to pure, primal rage. He did not say a word. He just lunged. He lunged at me, his hands outstretched, his face contorted into a mask of pure hatred. But I was not the woman I was 2 weeks ago. I was not dizzy. I was not weak. I was not foggy. I was perfectly clear. I simply took one step back, out of his reach. He stumbled, catching himself on the edge of the expensive dining table. I am not fainting, Mark, I said, my voice cutting through his rage. Not tonight. As if my words were a cue, the door to my home office opened. Mark stared, his breath hitching. Julian Croft stepped out. He was not dressed for dinner. He was dressed for war. He looked at Mark with a cool, profound disgust. Following directly behind him were 2 people Mark did not recognize. One was Riley, quiet and observant. The other 2 were detectives, in plain clothes but with an unmistakable air of authority. Their badges were clipped to their belts. Mark took a step back, his eyes darting from Julian to the detectives. He knew. Julian stopped a few feet away, his hands clasped behind his back. Mark, he said, his voice flat, professional. I believe you are in considerable legal trouble. Mark opened his mouth, a desperate "this is a misunderstanding" forming on his lips. But I cut him off. I believe it is my turn to speak. I walked, not to the dining table, but to the bar. Earlier in the evening, Mark had brought me my evening tea and my final vitamin, just as he always did. I had, of course, dumped the tea, but I had kept the capsule. I picked up the tray. On it was the single gel capsule in its sealed, dated evidence bag, the one I had filmed myself securing just 30 minutes ago. This is my presentation, Mark, I said, holding the tray up for them all to see. I placed it on the table in front of him. Exhibit A, I said, pointing to the pill. The final dose of propranolol you gave me 30 minutes ago, attempting to poison me. I walked to my briefcase, which sat by the sofa. I pulled out a folder. Exhibit B, the full toxicology report from the hospital, confirming the beta blockers and sedatives in my system. I pulled out a second folder. Exhibit C, the complete financials. The second mortgage you took out on my home. The diverted vector stock disbursements. The $700,000 in debt you racked up after your license was revoked for embezzlement 3 years ago. I pulled out my phone and hit play on an audio file. Chloe's voice filled the room, cold and calculating, describing the entire power of attorney strategy. Exhibit D, I said. Your co-conspirator, detailing the entire plot to have me declared incompetent. I looked at Chloe. Your confession was very thorough, by the way. The district attorney will love it. Her face went white. She finally understood she was not my ally. She was just another piece of my evidence. Mark just stared at the pill on the tray. He was silent. There was nothing left to say. One of the detectives stepped forward. Mark Vance, he said, his voice ringing with authority. You are under arrest for attempted assault, conspiracy to commit fraud, wire fraud, and grand larceny. The detective pulled Mark's hands behind his back. The sharp, metallic click of the handcuffs was the loudest sound I had ever heard. The rage returned, a final, pathetic burst of defiance. He twisted, his eyes finding mine, blazing with a hatred that was almost pathetic. You will have nothing, he screamed, his voice cracking. I will destroy you. You will be ruined. No, Mark, I said, my voice quiet. I am not ruined. I am Vector Design's senior architect. You, I said, are just a failed con man who got outplayed. They led him past Chloe, who was frozen by the elevator, and into the hall. Riley followed them out. The elevator doors chimed, and they were gone. The silence they left behind was vast and clean. Julian had not moved. He watched me as I walked past the destroyed dinner party, over to the floor-to-ceiling windows. I looked down at the city, my city. The lights were sharp, focused. The fog, both mental and physical, was gone. I heard him walk up to stand beside me, a respectful distance away. Your project, he said quietly. The Nexus Tower. The client signed off this afternoon. It is approved. Vance. It is a go. I kept looking at the skyline. Congratulations, he said. Take your 6 weeks. Take 8. Get some real rest. But when you come back, the corner office is yours. The one with the clear view. I did not look at him. I did not need to. I just nodded, my eyes fixed on the lights of Seattle, seeing them, finally, as they really were. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I would love to connect with you all, so please, comment below and let me know where you are listening from and share your thoughts. Do not forget to subscribe to Lily Revenge Stories, like this video, and give it an extra boost by hitting that hype button so more people can hear this story.